Atarka, Kolaghan, Dromoka, Silumgar, Ojutai. Long ago, the 5 dragons lived together in harmony. But then everything changed when the Khans attacked. Only Ugin, spirit of all dragons, could stop them. But when the dragons needed him most, he vanished. 1,000 years passed and the new Dragon Master emerged, a planeswalker named Vol. Although his dragon morphing abilities are great, he has a lot to learn before he's ready to save Ugin. But I believe Vol can save the world. Oh wait, no. That's the intro to Avatar. That set doesn't come out until August. What's up everybody and welcome to Hoarding Wombat Collectibles. Today we have another lore video for all you guys with the stories of the Fate Reforged and Dragons of Tarkir storylines. We will go through this how Sarkhan Vol saved the dragons from extinction, the 5 Dragonlords and their new clans, and the main story of Dragons of Tarkir. If you missed my last 2 videos on the Clans of Tarkir, you can watch those up here before we pick up where we left off at the beginning of the Fate Reforged storyline. So let's get started. We continue our story with Sarkhan, dazed and disoriented from his journey through time of 1,200 years into the past. He is free of the whispers that he was so familiar with, and the silence made him uneasy. Longing for the voice of Ugin, he curses his name as he realizes the irony. But suddenly, he sees a great storm on the horizon, and out of the lightning and thunderous clouds came not 1, but 3 pairs of wings. The Sarkhan revels in the glory of these beasts that now exist on Tarkir, as he loses himself in their graceful flight, but is then confronted with an even more awesome sight, the beautiful might of Atarka. As he readied himself to join them in his dragon form, he is stopped by a human voice telling him to flee as she brutally slices through one of the newly formed broodlings, feeding on a human victim. Horrified, Sarkhan vows to do the same to her, but is stopped as the whispers return. When the dragons lived, there was balance. The plane was not in pain. When dragons lived, all who inhabited Tarkir were greater. Sarkhan watches in awe as the teamer fight Atarka and her brood. Amazed by their strength, he understood Ugin's words and does not interfere, but instead follows the woman as she and the other teamer fled from Atarka's rain of fire. As Sarkhan tracks the sloppy trail left by the woman in the forest, he is tackled by a large saber-toothed beast. The woman whistles for the beast to ease off of him as she interrogates him. It is here that we learn the name Sarkhan actually means High Khan or Sky Khan, a nickname given to him in jest by the Mardu to mock Vol. She in turn reveals herself to be Yasova Dragonclaw, Khan of the Teamer, with her great saber-tooth Anshin. After Vol explains his name, Yasova demands respect as an actual Khan, and they walk to the Teamer lands. Sarkhan Vol tries to explain where he is from and what he's looking for as they walk, but he struggles. Although he does mention the Eye of Ugin, which piques Yasova's interest. Sarkhan tries to explain the idea of another plane of which the Eye of Ugin exists, saying that it's on the other side of a lake so vast where you cannot see the other side, to which Yasova does not understand, seeing him as a madman. He asks Yasova about the storms that birth the dragons. Yasova says they are dragon tempests, and Sarkhan mentions that he doesn't have them where he comes from. He also mentions that Ugin's spirit haunts him, but Yasova says that Ugin lives. Sarkhan then explains that he's from the unwritten now as the teamer know it, which Yasova doesn't believe. Yasova says that if Ugin dies, the dragons cease to be born. Yasova dreams of the world Sarkhan speaks of with no dragons and speaks of a future she was foretold by a great dragon, where the teamer were free to roam and her descendant was the Khan of the teamer. That dragon we come to find out is none other than Nicol Bolas, convincing Yasova to help him kill Ugin. Outraged by the thought of Bolas, Sarkhan turns to his dragon form and flies off. Vol contemplates snapping out of his dragon form and ending it all, as he feels defeated. But the Hedron shard he carries with him from Zendikar gives him hope. He flies through a dragon tempest and sees Ugin on the other side, realizing Ugin, not Bolas, was the one who inspired his love of dragons. While flying closer to Ugin, he notices a teamer ruined path that seems to trace out the path of the tempest leading to Ugin. Sarkhan studies this path and realizes it is a spell created by Yasova to guide Nicol Bolas as she has been carefully tracking the dragon tempest. Then suddenly Bolas appears, intercepting Ugin in his flight. As the two dragon planeswalker brothers face off, Ugin lets out a roar, goading the dragons, including Sarkhan, to come to his aid. But that would not stop Bolas from pummeling Ugin with spells and attacks. Ugin fights back with Ghostfire slashes that smack into Bolas, but were not enough to throw him off. And just as Sarkhan and the other dragons dove to attack, an elemental claw smashed through them. Wielded by Yasova, the spell turned all the dragons back on Ugin. One by one, the dragons started to turn and breathe fire and lightning on Ugin. But Sarkhan resisted in the only way he knew he could, by turning back into his dragon form, and dropping from the sky through the battle that raged in the clouds, seeing the last glimpse of Bolas landing the final blow on Ugin as he plummeted to the snow. As he lay there breathless, Yasova and her Sabertooth join him, as she tries to force him to stay alive so she can question him. Bruised and battered, Sarkhan struggles to flip over as he sees Ugin crash into the tundra. Then Yasova and Sarkhan both feel the change in the reality of Tarkir as a shockwave from Ugin's fall knocks them over. As Bolas flies off and disappears into the sky, Sarkhan gets up and begins walking toward the chasm left by Ugin's body, the same chasm he would visit 1,000 years in the future. Yasova asks where he is going, and Sarkhan simply replies, to save him. As Yasova protests, Sarkhan blasts her with dragonfire. As her mount checks on her and snarls at Sarkhan, he snarls back with greater force, keeping the mount at bay. After stumbling down the gorge and clearing the rubble from Ugin, Sarkhan again hears Ugin's voice in his head, saying, "Do you see now? Do you understand the lesson? Do you understand that you must always fail? As long as your goal is not truth but guidance? That as long as you seek dragons around you, you will never become the dragon within you?" Sarkhan struggles to understand this message, becoming frustrated as Ugin breathes his dying breath. But suddenly he understands what he must do. The hedron connected to his staff was a piece of the Eye of Ugin, a container to hold the Eldrazi, but also for safe storage. He breathed over the hedron to activate it, causing it to unfold in a great container surrounding Ugin in a protective cocoon as he struggled to survive. Yasova looked down from the top of the chasm and asked, "What have we done?" To which Sarkhan replied, "What we were meant to." And as Sarkhan recalls all the necessary occurrences in his life, from being a Mardu on Tarkir, learning from the Temur, being tricked by Bolas, and ending up here, he is whisked away by temporal forces back to his own now, reforged by his actions in the past. As the dragon tempests intensify in the years following the preservation of Ugin, the Khans struggle to survive in their battles against the 5 Dragonlords and make compromises and decisions in their desperation, bringing us to our next story, the Khan Fall. Shu Yun, the Khan of the Jeskai in this timeline, knows he must act now in the face of intensified storms and calls for a meeting with the clans at the Digger Stronghold, as it was the closest stronghold to the other clan territories. First to arrive was Alesha, who was featured in the side story The Truth of Names, showing how competent she is in commanding her horde, and showing some backstory on how she got her war name, although this time most of her clan disagreed with the arrangement she agreed to. Next arrives Rayan, Khan of the Abzan, who recently arose to the title after Dagatar bent his knee to Dromoka, taking most of the clan with him, as we learn in the side story No End and No Beginning. In this side story, Dagatar sacrifices his ancestry in order to buy his people a chance at peace. Next was Yasova, Khan of the Temur, as we learned in the other main stories, appearing tired from her long years fighting the dragons. Then finally Tasigur, Khan of the Sultai, featured in the Doom of the Golden Fang, where his general's spoiled lack of interest in being Khan is shown, and his cruel punishments and inability to rule are highlighted by how he deals with an assassination attempt. All of these side stories can be found on the Magic website, which I will post in the description. Tasigur, as rude as he is, barely acknowledges Rayan as a proper Khan, starting arguments among the Khans. As they calmed down, Yasova explained the events that she and Sarkhan experienced. She said she tried to contact Bolas and even tried to heal Ugin so he could calm the storms. After Rayan accuses Yasova of causing the intensified storms and makes a bid to destroy Ugin and his hedron tomb, Shu Yun explains that Ugin brought balance to the plane, and the Khans argue about what to do next. But suddenly, the sound of bells alerts the group to Silumgar, leading an attack on the fortress, with the Ojutai and his brood forming up with them. It seems the Khans were betrayed by Tasigur and fight together against his troops that remain. As Shu Yun flees with the Annals of the Sage Eye to keep them safe, he jumps onto one of Silumgar's dragon's heads and kills it with a pinpointed strike. After tumbling to the ground and stashing the Annals safely away, Shu Yun meets Ojutai on the battlefield, pleading with him to take his life and any other dragon slayer in the Jeskai clan in exchange for the safety of his clan. Ojutai agrees and freezes the Khan to death with his icy breath. Rayan, fighting with her troops, is also felled by Silumgar himself. Fortunately, Yasova and Alesha escape the stronghold by boat and live another day. Quan, Shu Yun's lore master, notices this along with all the other events of the battle that day and records it in his mind. After the battle ceases, the Jeskai submit to Ojutai, as he requests all Dragon Slayers, or the Ghostfire Warriors as the Jeskai refer to them as, be slain, and requests that Quan make it known that all clans are no longer and shall be wiped from all records. Quan agrees. Word of the events that day made their way in a letter from Yasova to Dagatar, explaining that Rayan died in her attempts to save Yasova and Alesha. Reluctantly, he sends word to Dromoka that now is the time to strike the rest of the Abzan holdouts and claim victory over the clan for good. Although Dagatar has the utmost respect for Rayan and the Abzan people, he does what he feels he must for their survival and orders the words Khan and Abzan erased from their people's language. Next we jump to Tasigur, safely back at the Sultai Palace after fulfilling the agreement he desperately made with Silumgar. As Tasigur protests that his end of the bargain was not upheld and he was not promised the pride of a ruling Khan, Silumgar apologizes sarcastically and draconic as the Rakshasa Shidiki orders 2 Sibsig servants to latch a golden shackle around Tasigur's neck, the chain of which Silumgar beholds toying with Tasigur as he fearfully demands respect. Shidiki translates Silumgar's apologies as he assures Tasigur that he will be held in the place of utmost pride, as a fine trophy around the great Dragonlord's neck. Meanwhile, Alesha is back riding to her Mardu clan, cursing Tasigur's name as she recounts the other clans that have fallen. Dagatar submitting to Dromoka, Tasigur scheming with Silumgar, Jeskai being taken over by Ojutai, and even recalls Yasova mentioning that she may be able to make peace with Atarka. Would she and her clan fall to Kolaghan? No, she couldn't stomach the thought, but now was not the time as the lightning-fast Dragonlord was gaining on them. But as the Mardu Khan and the powerful Dragonlord met, they paused. It was not to rule over the Mardu, it was to raid alongside them. Similar to Dagatar and Alesha, Yasova knew there was only one way to save her people from extinction. After felling a giant mammoth with her saber-toothed Anshin, her and a group of Temur warriors dragged the carcass to Ayagor, the roost of the Temur's most mighty foe, Atarka. The Dragonlord meets the Temur and their Khan as they enter the valley. As the Temur run to watch what unfolds safely from a distance, Atarka breathed fire on the mammoth carcass and the Krushok mounts hauling it, before indulging in the offering and gnawing on the mount as a side. Yasova returned to make her intentions clear, that this was a gift for Atarka to spare her people. Yet Atarka ignored her and continued gnawing. Yasova then retreated with the others to their camp, wondering if Atarka understood the message. She then finishes a carving of a tusk she took from her attempted offering, a crude scene showing the Temur offering meat to a great dragon. She places it down on a rock shelf next to another carving of a man with fiery wings under a dragonstorm, with the rune for Khan marked below it. Yasova states that the future isn't written yet. It's up to us to write it together, one day at a time. With those parting words, we finally make our way back to the rewritten now, hundreds of years after the time of Yasova and the Khan fall. But before we meet back up with Sarkhan and the events of the main story of Dragons of Tarkir, let's take a look at our new factions on Tarkir and how the key figures of the new now have changed. Unfortunately, after researching all of this and seeing all the information that Wizards provides on their Planeswalker Guide to Tarkir, I've decided to part this video out into 2 parts. For the rest of this video, we'll discuss the vast lore behind the Ojutai clan and the conniving members of the Silumgar clan. In part 2 of the video, which I'll push out as fast as I can, we will visit the Dromoka, Kolaghan, and Atarka clans, as well as the rest of the main storyline. So let's start with the Ojutai. The Ojutai clan have come to respect their great Dragonlord in a way that is much different than the other clans. Similar to the Jeskai, they seek to learn from the dragons and attempt to bond with a willing dragon they call the Skywise, learning all they can from the dragon's many years of wisdom. Attracting the attention of a Skywise dragon is a massive undertaking, and is almost never achieved before an Ojutai humanoid reaches middle age. Ojutai and his brood don't rule over their people, but instead guide them to enlightenment. Dragonlord Ojutai is known as the Great Teacher, and his guidance is unmatched by any other dragon or human due to his unquestionable age and wisdom. However, any Ojutai that seek to go against the Dragonlord's teachings are seen as defectors and heretics, and harshly punished for their actions. His teachings are passed down through lesser dragons to the Ojutai humanoids, as most humans aren't allowed to have direct counsel with the Ojutai himself. Not that they would completely understand the complex draconic language he speaks. It is left for the lesser dragons to translate to the common tongue. One of these teachings is the belief of the Great Wheel, a reincarnation cycle where all beings work to reach enlightenment and become reincarnated on the highest level as a dragon, with the lower levels consisting of humanoids who sit only above meager animals such as mice. Although this theory suggests that humanoids can achieve the reincarnation as a dragon, it is considered an insult to discuss such an event. The dragons have no respect for the humanoids, and are not afraid to kill any humanoid, as they are unlikely to face any dispute from the other dragons. They are even known to eat humanoids as they please, although this is typically reserved for the members of other clans. Even with this disrespect, when a monk of high wisdom passes away, their students look to the storms to look for any sign that they will be reborn as a dragon. One thing that is not disputed, however, is that no being can ascend to the level of Dragonlord Ojutai, as he is believed to have been born in the first Dragonstorm as a perfect, undying being. The humans Enoch, Jin, and Avon study the Eternal Dragon's teachings at monastic sanctuaries dotting the Ojutai territory. Many of these sanctuaries do not even have resident dragon leaders, so they rely on the most well-practiced and well-taught masters to lead the sanctuary. Each Ojutai is given a rank based on their martial arts abilities and their scholarly achievements to determine who among them will lead the sanctuary. In wartime, the highest-ranked martial artist serves as the commander for the Ojutai people, while in times of peace the role is left to the leading academic, with the possibility of the same person fulfilling both roles. The Ojutai martial artists are able to weave magic into their fighting styles, much like the dragons of their clan. The Ojutai can deal out devastating physical and magical combination attacks when facing an opponent. This style is embodied in the fighters known as Spell Fists, who can channel magical energy through their movements with speed and agility unmatched by non-magic users. Also, the Grace Blades, who can channel beyond the Spell Fist style and are able to conjure magical weapons with their discipline. Ojutai scholars, on the other hand, study the teachings of the Great Teacher in varying degrees. While younger Ojutai learn from the transcribed versions translated into the common tongue, many Ojutai can actually understand portions of the draconic language and seek to learn the teachings in their purest form. However, no Ojutai should speak the dragon tongue unless taught directly by a Skywise dragon. Understanding and speaking Draconic is considered necessary to become a sanctuary's leader, as they are solely responsible for conversing with any dragon visitors. To distinguish this rank, the Ojutai dress to fit their status, with the highest ranking of them wearing the most ornate clothing. Not only is this a show of pride and rank, but it serves as a way for the dragons to identify who among the humanoids is in charge. Although some higher status dragons like Ojutai will bring their own speaker. This dragon speaker can be human, but the role is typically reserved for the Avon, as it is beneath a dragon to have to carry their speaker on their back or in its claws. This speaker is also expected to fight endlessly alongside their dragon in battle in order to keep their own life safe. If a dragon dies, its speaker's life is worthless. As mentioned before, the main place of study and training for the Ojutai are the monastic sanctuaries. Located in the same isolated areas as the Clans of Tarkir timeline, with a few adjustments to account for the integration of the dragons. These sanctuaries are built with large vaulted hallways, perches, and landing areas to make the visiting dragons as comfortable as possible, while the humanoids' living quarters remain normal size. The bells that used to warn the humanoids of incoming dragon attacks are now used to notify humanoids to make preparations for their giant visitors. Some of these accommodations do hinder the Ojutai, unfortunately, as the only easy way to get to these sanctuaries is through flight, leaving any humanoids besides Avon messengers stranded unless they are willing to brave the tough mountainous journey. Similar to the Khan's timeline, Quarry Mountain is used as a significant location for the Ojutai. But instead of being surrounded on all sides by dragon bones, it is the primary roost and retreat of the great dragon himself. Monks that inhabit the area avoid contact with Ojutai, and some even take vows of silence as not to offend him. When Ojutai is finished with his isolation at this mountain, he travels to the Dragon Eye, known as the Sage Eye Stronghold in the time of the Khans, where he suns himself on large patios as his followers await his teachings. It is here where monks focus on meditation to reach enlightenment, unlocking immense power that they can use in combat when needed. Much like the Khans timeline, Digger Sanctuary is the main hub for trade and contact with the other clans, even if that contact is in the form of a raiding party. The humanoids and dragons that reside here are always prepared to defend the sanctuary from invaders or join in raids themselves on the other clan territories. Though, unlike Digger Sanctuary, the Icefall Sanctuary is a frozen reminder of the dragon's power over the Ojutai people. Formerly the Riverwheel Stronghold in the Khans timeline, the massive wheel that used to power daily life for the Jeskai is now frozen in place. The Ojutai humanoids use this as a representation of their unyielding style of martial arts the inhabitants take part in. However, there are some Jeskai who continue to survive in this timeline. Narset is still the ever-powerful master of martial arts, so much so that she was taken in by Ojutai as a student, where she was able to master the Draconic language. Over the years under Ojutai's wing, slowly she began to see that Ojutai was not all-knowing, and she craved more information on her purpose in life and what the real history of the plane was. We will see more of Narset later in the Dragons of Tarkir story, but for now we know she is searching the deepest recesses of the Ojutai sanctuaries to find her answers. One of the Ojutai that discourages Narset from this heretic behavior is Taigam, whose role changed significantly from the Khans timeline, where he turned on the Jeskai and became Sultai. But you can learn more of that in my Khans and Clans Part 1 video, which you can watch right up here. In this timeline, Taigam is a Spellfist instructor in the Quarry Mountain Sanctuary. He is tasked with recording all of the teachings of Ojutai, allowing him to become the most fluent Draconic translator in the entire clan. Although still tempted in this timeline to forge his own path, he ended up forming a great amount of respect for Ojutai's knowledge and staying with the clan. One of Ojutai's other messengers is the Aven Ishai, one of the most respected dragon speakers, as she has served Ojutai for many years, and her voice carries almost as much weight as Ojutai himself. Lastly, we have Zahada, the ruthless leader of the warriors of Digger Sanctuary, who provides tight security for the stronghold through her humanoid followers, as she has little need for dragons on her team. Although her security measures are unwelcome to the various artisans and trade caravans in Digger, her backstory justifies her methods, as she was ambushed by a Kolaghan raiding party as they posed as merchants entering the sanctuary. She personally killed their orc leader and now wears a necklace of his teeth as a reminder of her strength. Although Zahada is a Ojutai, her grim necklace is very reminiscent of the leader in our next clan, the Silumgar, a clan with very few living members but enough zombie servants and warriors to rival any clan's population. This is probably due to the fact that deceit and corruption are rampant in the Silumgar clan. All members constantly plot to be higher in Silumgar's inner circle, as they serve as Silumgar's translators, using their position to interpret his orders to get their way. But Silumgar does not take kindly to the undermining of his authority, and will slay entire organizations if they try to go against him. Silumgar takes great pleasure in toying with his subjects, pushing them to fight to the death, where he enjoys the entertainment and the new additions to his zombie army. Although Silumgar does have some notable weaknesses, his idle mind torments him with fears that Kolaghan will mount an attack and usurp his power. If he's not constantly plotting, he will divulge into fits of culling within his own clan. His followers are constantly planning festivals and sacrifices in order to keep him distracted and entertained. Silumgar sits atop a pile of gold as his clan values wealth and knowledge of the ancient artifacts they steal from other clans. Silumgar necromancers often send raiding parties of undead to old Ojutai sanctuaries and temples looking for scrolls and other artifacts for clerics to decipher and offer to Silumgar. Like most clans, the dragons have fully taken over, with Silumgar at the top and his royal dragon subjects next in line. Some priests and clerics have clawed their way to just below the dragons on the totem pole and act as the disciples of the Dragonlord, translating his commands and spreading the good word of their powerful draconic leader. While most humanoids struggle to gain this role, it comes with the constant threat of falling out of favor with the dragon and being eaten alive. The most prominent of these disciples or dragon speakers is Ciara, the dragon's mouth, who's responsible for updating the rest of the humans on Silumgar's mandates and mood swings. One of Silumgar's most brutal servants is Zathi, the Infallible, a dragon slayer that is tasked with killing off any of Silumgar's brood that are tempted to overthrow their lord. Although Silumgar is ever worried that Zathi might try to take his own head as a prize, so he keeps a close eye on her whereabouts through his loyal ministers. As her full name suggests, Zathi is one of the many in the dragon-slaying group called the Infallible, who are the elite warriors specifically trained in culling dragons. Close to these humans on the pyramid are the Naga, who in this timeline have been reduced in stature but secretly hold to the claim that they are descendants of the dragons. The only Naga that truly holds any power is Sidisi, the Undead Visor, who, as we know from our Khan's video, was the Khan of the Sultai in another time. She still holds immense power as a masterful necromancer, and as an advisor to Silumgar, weaving her personal ambition into her advice. But when she started manipulating Silumgar's words as his translator, she was put to death by the Great Dragon for treason. Although we know death is not the end in this clan, as she was raised from the dead under the orders of Silumgar to serve as his undying servant. She still serves Silumgar in death for now, but has gained favor with many Sibsig that stay loyal to her. One race that finds themselves outside of the power pyramid are the Rakshasa. They don't serve a specific role under the Dragonlord, but are kept as allies to his brood. While Silumgar is fearful of the Rakshasa's demon powers, he makes use of them in any way he can. In addition to demon magic, a lot of the Silumgar can practice powerful necromancy, as mentioned before. Similar to the Sultai, they raise their dead for use as servants and warriors, but the Silumgar take it a step further, in creating a special rank of Sibsig, much more powerful than your average undead grunt. Beholding a twisted dark energy, their necromancers are able to pull from the latent life force of the dead. These dead are typically pulled from the corpses of other clans' warriors that lie at the bottom of the Morang River. Along this river lies the borders between Silumgar's jungle and Kolaghan's mountains. It is also the site of the Morang River Fortress, where Silumgar himself resides, keeping an eye on his most fearful dragon rival, as he orders the undead and his dragon brood to patrol the border constantly. Downstream of the Morang River is the Gudul, a series of islands dotting the mouth of the river, with all kinds of horrible creatures and undead, preventing any attack on the Silumgar by boat. Much like the Gudul, the Gurmag Swamp is home to hordes of undead soldiers surrounding the entire Silumgar territory, keeping unwanted intruders at bay. One location that has changed slightly in use from the time of the Sultai is Ukud Necropolis. This temple used to house the nobility of the Sultai, but is now reserved for the bones of Silumgar's closest dragon followers, along with the many treasures Silumgar hoards. Lastly, we have Karsi Palace, which is also still used by the Silumgar in this timeline, but is now the location for sorcerers and scholars to study dark magic to better serve their dark dragon master. And that's where we'll leave off until part 2 of the Dragons of Tarkir video, which I hope to release next week, where we finish off the original Tarkir storyline with the Dromoka, the Kolaghan, and the Atarka clans, and the final conclusion of the main story. I hope everyone likes these videos, as I do love exploring all the lore and the artwork in these sets, even though it takes days of research, writing, and editing. Please let me know what you think in the comments, as I'm always trying to think of new stories and different ways to make my content fun. I do have a couple of ideas for some different types of lore videos, but those will have to wait until we finish the entire history and lore of Tarkir, including the new storyline with the Tarkir Dragonstorm. That's all I got for today, so thanks everybody for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you like what I'm doing here. Thanks everybody.